Welcome back to Watch the Bookerman and to a new series on the channel. Not only is it a new series, it is also a new game to the channel, albeit one that has been out for a little while. We are playing TEW9 for the very first time. I've held out on buying it, partly because I was still playing my TNA save in TEW 2020, but also because nothing really grabbed me towards buying it. With that said, the mod that this save will be played on was probably the biggest draw to this game for me. I did play it a little bit in TEW 2020, I booked ECW in that one, but as you can see on screen, we will this time be booking WCW 2001, one of the most popular scenarios for anybody who's played this game. I'm sure the vast majority of people playing of a certain age will have at some point booked a what if WCW survived. The scenario for this mod though particularly interests me, not only because it's probably the most challenging mod that I've ever played of this era, but also because it just sets up nicely a fairly simple scenario where that man on screen, Shane McMahon, has bought WCW, so you don't have to get too much into the minutiae. It's literally what happened on that 26th of March 2001 episode. The name on the contract was McMahon, but of course Shane McMahon. Shane then went on to defeat his father at WrestleMania 17, and he goes on now to rebuild WCW and to remold it in his image. I did originally think about booking as Johnny Ace, because in the TEW 2020 version he was actually set as the booker, but I think with the new feature in TEW9 that you can build your own booking team, I prefer the idea of us being Shane, head of creative, and then bringing in people and over the years hopefully building a really strong, solid booking team to help us. Plus, I don't think anybody wants to play as Johnny Ace regardless of what the game's. So we will play as owner, and I'm first going to just go into the office screen and basically show you what we're working with. Of course, a big part of this is the names that we're going to bring in, because there is a hell of a lot of work to do on this roster, but I think part one is going to be me going through this roster, giving a few thoughts. I've rewatched WCW 2001 from January to that March 26th show, so while I'm not somebody who's watched every episode of WCW in history, I do feel that I have a decent idea of where the roster was at this time. Of course, it's all going to be changed, but with one major star on the roster, that being our user character Shane McMahon, who I don't really intend to use as a full-time wrestler, although with the moments that he created in WWF and WWE, it'd be foolish not to use him from time to time. But it says a lot that our most over and popular star is the non-wrestling owner of the company. But of course, his on-screen role is going to be huge in making sure that we get decent ratings for these early shows and hopefully start to grow WCW. With him though, we do have a couple of stars on the roster, Booker T and Diamond Dallas Page. Now, Booker T is our World Heavyweight and United States Heavyweight Champion. He's got some really good skills. He's in the prime of his career at 36. He's pretty popular, and he's basically going to be the franchise player of this company. Might not necessarily set him as the figurehead, but that is basically how we're going to be booking him. He is the top guy in the company as far as I'm concerned. But a very, very strong second face is Diamond Dallas Page. Now, there's the potential idea that one of these has to go heel because they're the only two stars in the company. I'm not sure that's something I'm going to do, because like I said, based on watching these two guys in WCW 2001, they were so popular at a time when not that many people were over, and I think it'd be a little bit foolish just for the shock value, just for the sake of a turn, which WCW certainly had form for. Everybody was betraying everybody. So in the interest of a little bit of stability, we're probably going to try and keep these two as our number one and number two faces. Diamond Dallas Page is actually more popular than Booker T and equal footing to Shane McMahon, but you can see he's getting up there in age. He's got a little bit of wear and tear on his body, but nothing too bad. He did retire from the WWE not that long after. I think he only lasted maybe a year and a bit in that company, but I think if he's still being presented and pushed as a top guy, we might just get a little bit more out of Diamond Dallas Page than we saw in reality. He's got a couple of years left on his contract, Booker T with 3 years left on, so two guys who we've got for the long term, and that's something that we definitely have to try and take advantage of. We have two well known, one of them doesn't have too long left on his contract, and he's somebody who didn't work in WWF, but he is over, and this is where the challenge of this mod comes in. So Buff Bagwell, if there was a plethora of talent and so many guys out there who we could bring in, he'd be somebody who I'd probably be jobbing out the door. In this scenario, we've got somebody with 60 overness. So you kind of have to use Buff Bagwell as one of your, he's the top heel in the company essentially in terms of overness. I'm not his biggest fan, but he was a popular figure in WCW 2001. That's no doubt about that. Even when Vince did that survey thing, he was one of the people, I'd say he got the third biggest pop out of anybody, and that's when he was booked as a heel. So Buff Bagwell, probably because he'd never been in WWF, there's that sort of newness factor to it, but even a couple of segments in WCW 2001, he was a popular figure. There's no denying that, as much as I'd like to, because he was somebody who never particularly resonated with me, and that's the challenge. There's a couple of other people on this roster who I'm really not a big fan of, but because they have certain things that we can't find anywhere else, we are going to have to use them. Lance Storm probably couldn't be more different to that. He had a reputation of being a little bit boring, but I'd say in WCW 2001, they had found the perfect gimmick for him. Basically, let me be serious for a minute. He seems like a serious, dry person, and that's basically the gimmick that they gave him. Putting him with Mike Awesome, who we'll come to later, was a really, really great move, and that's an act that I'm keen to keep and build to the upper echelons of this company. I will have a quick look at his skills. He's an absolutely fantastic in-ring performer at a time when those are very much scarce. So Lance Storm, in terms of in-ring work, is going to do a lot of carrying for a lot of people, but he's also a pretty popular figure on a long-term contract. So again, somebody who I can see maybe in that Jericho, Guerrero, Benoit mold, albeit hopefully he doesn't feel he has to jump ship to reach the upper echelons of the card. He's somebody who can represent where WCW is learning from the mistakes of the past. We have a super talented wrestler, whatever we can do to make him as interesting as possible, but his skills and his decent overness definitely stand him in good stead. We have Arn Anderson, who was the colour commentator for the one-time WWF WCW show. We're just going to use him as a road agent. I think he might appear on screen from time to time as he is a WCW legend, but don't need to look too much into him, even if he is one of the more popular guys on the roster. Billy Kidman is somebody who, again, I don't think there's any question that the ability is there, and he is a fairly popular wrestler as well. He was getting decent reactions from what I remember, but he was just stuck in that filthy animals role. So I think we definitely need to try and give Billy Kidman something new, something more interesting. He's kind of been in this position for a long time. Even his look, he was just stuck in that status quo position and was never going anywhere. So somebody, again, potential, but also a lot of work to do. And I think he will be somebody who will try and move out of the cruiserweight division, because a large portion of the big names aren't here anymore. I feel like sort of everybody moves up a step, and then the bottom people who, let's face it, that's what the cruiserweight were. They were very much treated as preliminary guys. A lot of them will be moving up, and then we'll have to rebuild a new cruiserweight division with some fresh faces. They'd already started doing that. Jason Jet, AJ Styles, a few other people had been brought in to fill that spot, and I think that was the idea, that we were going to move people up and sort of try and keep the roster as fresh as we can. Chavo Guerrero's another one of them. He was stuck very much in the cruiserweight division towards the end of WCW. While again, he's not somebody who ever sort of caught on that much in WWE, this gives him an opportunity, being in WCW as one of the few guys who has a lot of talent, who has a decent amount of overness. He's in the recognisable category, which in the cruiserweight division isn't that common. I think he's somebody who can look towards the United States division, following the footsteps of his uncle Eddie. Maybe that can be something that we go into, but again, somebody I'm not the massivest fan of. I'm not going to pretend that I'm excited to book Chavo Guerrero, but in this scenario, he is going to be vital to this company. I'll then speak on our tag team champions together, Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Haire, probably the two best of that crop of power plant guys who were working as the natural born thrillers. We've got quite a few of them in the unimportant screen, but I do think that in terms of the potential, Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Haire as our tag team champions do have the opportunity to be pushed pretty high. Palumbo, I will say, he didn't have that interesting of a character. Sean O'Haire was definitely the one of the tag team that stood out, and his athletic ability and he just had the star quality. I think there's no denying that. Chuck Palumbo, slightly less so, but again, somebody who I think as a big man, 6'7", there's a lot you can do with him just by pushing him and building him as a strong, credible contender. Coming to another guy who I'm not a big fan of at all, Hugh Morrus. He's not that popular in the business, to be fair. Now, I don't think a lot of stuff has come out about him that paints him in a very bad light, but at this time on screen, they were presenting him as this locker room leader, so perhaps a sign of how times have changed. And actually, watching him, I'd always been like one of my least favourite wrestlers of all time. Cannot stand Hugh Morrus, and his promos and his gimmick were absolutely terrible. He was the laughing man, and he had the most grating, annoying laugh, as if I couldn't dislike this guy anymore. Watching him in WCW 2001 made me absolutely despise Hugh Morrus. But he's got something, he's got size, he can do that moonsault, and he was a reasonably good wrestler. Again, he's got some overness, so it's going to be a sort of thing where begrudgingly, I'm not just going to be able to have him lose every match and kick him out. We've got him under contract for 2 years, and hopefully by the end of that 2 years, we've built enough of a roster that I can send Bill DeMott wherever he wants to go and terrorise people in WWE development, whatever, as long as he's not my problem. But for now, he is actually going to be a reasonably important part of our mid-card. Chris Kanyon is somebody who he has the all-round game. You can see from his ability there, he's really, really talented. He's 50 overness. He's very, very good at pretty much everything. So again, while what I've watched in 2001, I'm not a massive fan of. I didn't think that the gimmick that he had, they were trying to do this sociopath gimmick, and he was sort of obsessed with DDP. It felt a bit forced to me and unnatural, so we are going to find a role for Chris Kanyon that I think he'll be a really, really good part of this roster. Badass is a very generic gimmick for him, so probably something that we will need to change going forward. But somebody with a lot of potential that probably hasn't reached the level that he can, and this is the opportunity for him. Kanyon never got that break in his career, and now in this WCW where there is space at the top of the card, he is somebody who, by virtue of just being good all round, he's not amazing at too much, but by being very, very good in all departments, he is one of the most valuable members of this roster. Mike Awesome, he's not quite got the all-round game of Chris Kanyon. It's an interesting one. Again, why watching WCW 2001 was very valuable. My opinion of him was that they had completely killed and buried his character. He had the Batgirl thriller and that 70s guy I think he had, and that was my prevailing memory of Mike Awesome in WCW. What I didn't realise was that at the very start of 2001, the first show of the year I believe it was, they completely sort of retconned that and made him the Canadian Killer, put him with Lance Storm. And while they didn't do too much right around this era, the rehabilitation of Mike Awesome's character was definitely something that was starting and something that I intend to continue, because I think with his agility, with his really, really impressive in-ring abilities, he's somebody who I think there's a way of booking him where he can look like a big star in this company, and that is something that I certainly intend to do. Coming now onto Shane Helms, he is our Cruiserweight champion. He was somebody who was just breaking out. It looked to me like they were intending to build the new Cruiserweight division around Shane Helms. One thing I will need to do while I'm here though, because I know just the way that I am definitely going to have a scenario where Shane McMahon has to cut this all-important promo, and I'm going to put Shane Helms in there. I've done it with John Cone and John Cena before. I've done it with Paul Heyman and Paul London before. So it's really important that we don't have any mistakes like that, I think. And I will go now and change his name to Sugar Shane. We'll stick Helms. We'll still refer to him as Sugar Shane Helms, but that's just going to make things a little bit more easy for me. Sugar Shane there. Again, a talented guy, pretty over, and somebody who is going to be a big part of this Cruiserweight division. The temptation for me really is to just steal the Hurricane gimmicks. I just think that's the best thing that he did in his career. I'm going to try and be original where I can, and if you find in a few months I'm leaning on that Hurricane gimmick, you know that I've struggled to come up with anything good for him, basically. Shawn Stasiak, he's a decent mid-carder in this save for us now. He's decently over, but to me, I think those microphone skills and performance skills are probably a little bit kind to him. He came across to me as somebody who they were just throwing anything at the wall and hoping some of it would stick. They were calling him the Mecca of Manhood, the new total package or something like that, the superstar Shawn Stasiak. And then in the last couple of weeks, they paired him with Stacy Keibler, who was obviously a very popular figure. It just felt to me like they were really trying to make somebody a star who just didn't quite have the charisma. Maybe in this game, he can develop his skills and become a really important part of this roster. I certainly hope that he can, but he's just not somebody who I really can ever see being that interesting. Sounds a bit harsh, and maybe I shouldn't be giving up on somebody who is 6'4", who certainly has a decent-ish look, but there's just something missing there, and there's a couple of guys like that who I'll come to later, and I just don't see anything interesting ever happening in their careers. Like I say, I could be wrong. Stacy Keibler, very, very popular. Obviously, it's that sex appeal that's going to be the attribute that we exploit where we can, and I think I'll just stick with her, with Shawn Stasiak for the time being, and just see where she goes. We will come now onto a sizable portion of the roster, which is unimportant. A couple of referees don't really matter too much, but David Flair is somebody who is still on the roster, one of many WCW power plant graduates on this roster, and when you look through it, it probably isn't the best reflection on the power plant. There are some really great stars who've come through that facility, Diamond Dallas Page for one. David Flair's so hard to book. His father isn't available to hire. What do you do with David Flair? I'd be interested if anybody has any ideas, because really I'm kind of at a loss for him, that's all I can say. He didn't really amount to much in his career. I don't know. I really don't know with David Flair, somebody who I'm absolutely at a loss of how to use. Elix Skipper is somebody who was coming in with Kid Romeo, and again, they're fresh faces, which is something I definitely like. He came through the power plant, so some talent there as well. Not going to completely bury our training facility. These two guys both graduated in 1999, and they formed a tag team recently. They were the first Cruiserweight Tag Team Champions, so I'm going to keep that team together where we can, and they'll both be part of the Cruiserweight division, as will Evan Courageous. I'm not going to go too far into all these people, because essentially I would just be saying they're decent wrestlers, good in the ring, who don't really have much of a character. So most of the people on this unimportant list, they're on this unimportant list for a reason, but our job booking WCW is to try and make these guys as interesting as we possibly can. Fit Finlay is technically still an active wrestler. I'm using him mostly as a road agent, I think, but there will be times, because of the scarcity, because of the sparsity of this roster, we will be using Fit Finlay in ring, and I've got him penciled in to be on the first pay-per-view, and then he's in an angle that will basically roll him back to being majoritively a road agent. He has got a hell of a lot of talent though. He's a brilliant road agent, but he's still good in the ring and actually has a little bit of popularity compared to some of the other people on the roster. Jamie Noble, another guy who's known better for what he went on to do in the WWE. He's again talented, he's got that intensity, some really good in-ring work from him certainly, and we just have to try and find the right position for him going forward. Jason Jett, who a big thing that he has going for him is that he's fresh. A lot of these people have been hanging around for quite a while. Jason Jett, formerly known as Easy Money, is somebody who came into the company right near the end and was impressing in the few performances that he did have. Somebody who there is a lot more we can do with, and I certainly intend him to be a big part. I was going to say the Cruiserweight division, but he's 6'2" and 239 pounds, so maybe not even somebody who can fit in the Cruiserweight division. I do sort of have an idea for him being in a tag team actually, so yeah, maybe we can have him bypass the Cruiserweights altogether, but he was very much positioned as a member of the Cruiserweight division when I was watching, so a little bit of a strange one. Jimmy Yang and Kaz Hayashi. Jimmy Yang only 19, so for how good he is already, I think if we do get a long-term save out of this, he's going to be somebody who is probably going to be one of the best in-ring performers in the game. Maybe that's overstating it, but him and Kaz Hayashi were performing as the Young Dragons, and WCW were trying to build a Cruiserweight tag team division at this time, and actually in terms of our tag team division that we'll come to later, it's not in that good of a state. We could probably be better off having a Cruiserweight tag team division than a regular tag team division at this point. Johnny Ace, only 38. He is a retired wrestler, on-screen personality, but I think we'll be sticking to him as a road agent for the time being. Johnny the Bull is somebody who, it's hard because they certainly had potential, these guys, and you look at them in reality having not gone on to achieve too much. I think, did he go on to be like Relic or Red Drum or something like that? So I think he had a decent enough career. He continued in the business. But when you think Johnny the Bull, you kind of just think one of these forgotten guys at WCW, which is a bad thing, but I also think it can work to a benefit because we almost have a blank slate of what we want to do with some of these characters. We've been through Hayashi and Kid Romeo. Kwee Wee had a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde character, as it says there. He was, Kwee Wee, a very flamboyant camp character, but then at certain points in his match, he would turn into Angry Allen, and he is probably one of the people who... he's going to be mainly used as a jobber, I think, as is the same for Lash LaRue. I just don't really see anything in them. Like, they're fine, there's nothing wrong with them particularly, but they just don't have anything that makes me think in 6 months or a year they're going to be any higher up on the card than they currently are. Matt Jindrak, on the other hand, is probably the one on this unimportant screen who I see the most potential in. He has a really good size, and there's always that what if, the stuff we hear about him nearly being in Evolution before the fact that him and Randy had basically it says there, party animal personality types. That tells me that Ric Flair and Triple H saw a potential star in this guy, which isn't to be sniffed at. So he's somebody who I think we will be looking to build towards the level of Sean O'Haire, Chuck Palumbo, and then hopefully he can go beyond that. He certainly has good fundamentals and physicals, and definitely has a look. I think 60 star quality might be a little bit harsh. He's 6'6", he's muscular, he's in good shape, and I think he's somebody who is going to be a very, very big part of this company going forward. Mike Sanders, he's another strange one. Very briefly, they had him on screen with Ric Flair, where he was saying that you can be the new dirtiest player in the game. So whether that was something that Flair saw in him, or whether management just wanted him to try and give above average Mike Sanders a bit of a rub, for me, the above doesn't really apply. He was the definition of average to me. Again, somebody who you've got a bit of a blank slate with, so that does play into his favour for me. But look at the ability. He is very, very average. Decent on the mic, I suppose that's one thing we can exploit. I almost see him more as a manager going forward, potentially, if he does manage to stay on the roster. Paisley and Nick Patrick, I don't really have anything for Paisley. She doesn't manage anybody. I think she was one of the Nitro girls, but she went on to marry Booker T. I don't know. Yeah, so they're dating at the minute. So not somebody I'm going to release because I don't want to upset our top star, but somebody who we will have to find something for pretty soon. Reno, again, he had a pretty good look, and I think he probably would have been somebody that did give a little bit of a push because he had a good look and he had an interesting moveset, to be fair. His rolling cutter finisher, which is Cody Rhodes' finisher, the Crossroads. The only downside of Reno was that horrible little rat tail he had on the back. Whether we get him to shave that off or whether that is basically what makes him an effective heel, and whenever I saw him on screen I absolutely despised that look, so maybe it was working for him. He's 5'11", so a little bit smaller than those other natural born thriller guys, but he was very well built, and I think somebody who can again hopefully reach the mid card of the company. Scott Hudson was the colour commentator. Now I had in my head before watching that he was not a very good commentator. From what I saw in 2001, he was decent, definitely nothing wrong with his commentary. However, I'll be using him more as a backstage interviewer on account of the fact that I have my own idea of a commentary team that I want to bring in, and that's just a case that Scott Hudson doesn't fit in that. But if we ever get a B show or something like that, he's certainly one of the first names I'll be looking to commentate that. Shannon Moore, young, potential. He went on to be a very talented wrestler, of course, and had a decent career, but again, at this time, very little in the way of character, and that's something we will need to develop. The Wall was originally meant to be booked on the pay-per-view The Big Bang, and then I just saw that he's in rehab for like 6 months. I don't know when his contract ends. Yeah, so his contract's over before he comes back from rehab. So, I mean, I don't want to release him while he's in rehab, but I'd be surprised if we re-sign The Wall. I do think there's potential there just for his size and his menace. And if he'd have been available from the start, we probably would have used him. But as he isn't available, unfortunately, it's likely that we'll never even see The Wall in this save. The final member of the roster is Tori Wilson, 25 years old. Again, very similar to Stacy Keibler. I'm not going to say much more than that. She is fairly over though, and I don't know who she doesn't manage anybody at this minute. Maybe we'll just stick her back with Billy Kidman and pretend that their Jerry Springer style drama never happened. But that is the roster that we are working with. I will now just go through the other sort of admin stuff before moving on to maybe the most important part of this, the people that we'll be bringing in. So currently the booking team is just Shane McMahon and Johnny Ace. Johnny Ace had been the head of creative in WCW towards the last few months, so we're going to try and keep a bit of continuity there, but I will look to try and find anybody who has at least, let's say, 50 booking skill. I don't want any active wrestlers to be on the booking team. So I think I'm just going to stick Fit Finlay and Arn Anderson on there. I don't really see them as the creative types, but they've got the booking ability, and at this time we do need a couple of more people on that team. Over time, maybe even with somebody who I sign, we will have a more full and hopefully more creative booking team, but for now I think that'll be okay. We'll look at the creative meeting. Of course, Shane McMahon, our only major star, so he's in the franchise players. Sugar Shane as the only next big thing, so that certainly helps in terms of when we're looking to push people. Sugar Shane, somebody who will be at the very top of that list. Jimmy Yang and Kaz Hayashi, as well as Sugar Shane, Shannon Moore and Jamie Noble. So again, the potential in the young cruiserweight division there, and those are going to be 5 guys who can be a very good base of what we start to build around them in what I think is going to be a very nice, fresh, revamped WCW cruiserweight division. Talk the talk, we have DDP, Booker T, Buff Bagwell, as I say, not his biggest fan, but this is what I mean. He's one of the best guys on the mic we have, and we definitely need that because there are a lot of people who don't quite have the entertainment skills required. Shane McMahon only in 4th is quite surprising, where Kanyon takes up the number 5 spot. Kanyon also on the showstopper, so that's what I mean about him being not exactly somebody who you see as a potential major star, but in this version of WCW, you've not really got much other option. Booker T and Diamond Dallas Page, unsurprisingly, the number 1 and number 2, but Sugar Shane making it into 5th. Really lots of potential for Sugar Shane, it seems, in terms of the way that the role's gone in this save. And Lance Storm also, we know how good he is in the ring. Yeah, unsurprising to see he's also the top ring general. Chavo Guerrero, we're going to really lean on these guys in terms of guys who in the mid-card can make sure that we're putting on good matches week in and week out. Diamond Dallas Page, Booker T and Kanyon, so the same faces there making up the ring generals. Who's hot is Shane McMahon, that's cool, and our current champion. So yeah, seems that's a fair way of this save to have been set up. Thank you to Mr. Canada for not putting anybody in the who's not, and we'll see who is on the hidden gems. Bob Sapp, Shark Boy, John Cena, Hot Stuff Hernandez and Brea Wellington. Some of those will certainly be on the radar. I don't even think I'm going to use divisions as you traditionally would with Cruiserweight, Heavyweight, United States and Tag. I think I'm going to rename them as something different, and hopefully on another video I will show you that. We won't have any end of year awards just yet. We have 2 options for the potential figureheads. Diamond Dallas Page being a little more over than Booker T prevents him from being it, whereas Booker T having a little bit more star quality. So if we do get Booker T more over, potentially an idea to make him the figurehead. I don't know what the figurehead does or what a good figurehead does. That's something that we can deal with when we come to it. The Inner Circle, I don't know how many locker room leaders you can have, but we'll have a look. So can you put all 3 of these as locker room leaders? Yeah, so I think strength in numbers there. We've got 3 great locker room leaders. The Chief Enforcer will exclude ill-suited candidates. It's only going to be Fit Finlay, that's fair enough. I don't think anybody is going to want to mess with him, particularly not with that picture. Head of Talent Relations, are we going to remove ill-suited candidates? Only Arn Anderson. I was going to put Johnny Ace as this, but perhaps I'd imagine, let's have a quick look actually, is it his personality type? Yeah, he's sleazy. I mean, it's accurate, but he was actually the head of talent relations in WWE, but maybe we don't want all our talent to hate us, so I'm going to give the position to Arn Anderson. Morale officer, let's have a look who this can be. Ill-suited candidates gone. Charles Robinson I think I'm going to go with Charles Robinson for the morale officer. Seems a bit random, but there's something, I seem to remember some stories that he was very well liked or he was always mucking about or something like that. I can't quite remember. Our top road agent, I think, is Arn Anderson, so yeah, no question about that. And then the head trainer, I'm assuming, certainly for the women, Fit Finlay, because I think he had a big part of the WWE women's division around maybe 2010 or something like that. But I think, as he's the only non-active wrestler available for that slot, we are going to give it to Fit Finlay on both sides, and he can just be our head trainer, full stop. Again, if we bring new people in, we can always make that change. Are we going to have a stooge? Let's see who can possibly be a stooge, and then I'll decide from there. Well, the Wall can't be the stooge, he's not here. Mike Awesome, I can't quite see. Just for the sake of it, because it's my first save on this new game, I'll put Kanyon as the stooge, and hopefully he can rat anybody out who's doing things that they shouldn't be doing. The product I'm going to leave as is. It is Shane's Vision. The core product is Classic Southern Wrestling. The current product is Ruthless Aggression. I'm not going to change anything for now. Again, over time I might do, but I'm just going to leave it with how Mr. Canada set it up. I didn't say at the start of the video, but there will be a link to the mod in the description of this video, and I really recommend, if you've got TW9 or you've got TW 2020 actually, check that out, because it is, for me, in every TW that I've played, going back to TW 2000, well, I've played 2005, I think I've played every TW apart from TW 2004, and it's definitely one of my favourite mods that I've ever played, full stop. No stables currently on the roster, storylines obviously not yet set up, and as I was saying before, we've got 3 cruiserweight tag teams, 3 count Young Dragons and Romeo and Skipper. We then have our world tag team champions, and then the only sort of challenger to them that's an established team is Team Canada, Lance Storm and Mike Awesome. And to be honest, because of how good they are in singles, I'm sort of in a position where I don't want them in the tag team division. I don't want to do the first show of Team Canada losing. I don't want Natural Born Thrillers losing their titles on the first show. So we're in a bit of a conundrum, I suppose, of what we do. The idea that I've got for the tag team division, I think we will be okay. I will just show the champions, albeit we've already seen them. The slight problem that we have is Booker T holding the World Heavyweight and United States Heavyweight Championship. I will be doing something about that on the Big Bang pay-per-view. The idea that I've got, I think, does kind of work. And we've got Shane as the Cruiserweight, Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Haire as tag team champions. I think that is a solid set of starting champions, so I'm not going to complain. Things could have been a lot worse, but I'm happy with how things are right now. On commentary, I am actually going to clear the commentary team because those two guys will be used elsewhere, and I am, as I say, bringing in a full team. Broadcasting, we have some pay-per-view deals, and I don't want us to get a TV deal just yet, so that'll be done after the Big Bang pay-per-view, but we do have coverage in 3 areas. Hopefully we can try and get deals elsewhere before the Big Bang, but that's just not something that I want to go through just yet. Our next show, the Big Bang, 27th of May 2001. This pay-per-view schedule is going to look very, very different by the time we get to it, and my idea currently is that all these pay-per-views aren't going to take place, and our next pay-per-view after the Big Bang will be the 30th of December 2001. Now, I accept that there's an interest in the challenge of trying to build a pay-per-view each month while having such a scarce roster, but I just think it's a bad idea personally. And what I think might actually be fun is to look at the Big Bang card and then have 6-7 months, whatever it is, of build to Starrcade 2001, our biggest show of the year, our season finale, and then hopefully you'll look at those 2 cards and think it is night and day. It might be the case that we don't build up enough stars, that the signings don't work out, and we end up with a shit pay-per-view card for Starrcade, just as bad as the Big Bang. But the idea then would be to have a regular pay-per-view schedule going through 2002. But just while we establish, I'm going to try and get a TV deal first of all. Hopefully we can get that over the line, and then there'll be 6 months of build, albeit with TV specials and stuff like that. The idea will be that this is all about building to Starrcade 2001. We don't have anything else I think that we need to go through. The backstage is average. I'm just going to check if there's anything that I think we can change there. What I will do is I'll organise transport and hotels, but we're not going to pay for it, and that's now having a positive effect, so that's good. Buff Bagwell, Hugh Morrus, Johnny Ace, Mike Awesome and The Wall are all pretty bad influences, and we've got David Flair and Stacy Keibler having a negative relationship, as do Buff Bagwell and Kui Wee. But I will note that, quite surprisingly for WCW, there are more positives than there are negatives, so that's not something that we can always say has been the case in WCW. Another thing I'm going to do is turn off house shows for the time being. We'll probably bring them back when WCW has a TV deal, but for now, the idea that we've gone for this WCW reboot and then the first show is going to be a house show in some random town, probably not the best idea. There's nothing else that I really want to go through there. I don't think. I'm happy with everything else. I will check if we have any company relationships. So we've got positive opinions with really small companies. I'd prefer it if they were going to accept. We're not large enough to have a development system just yet, so perhaps something to look forward to when we grow into the next size. We need 77 in all of the east of the United States, so we're quite far off that in some regions, but close to it in others. So maybe within a year we can look, or even start our own development territory, to be fair, if we are able to make enough money. Now we get to what I think is the most important part of this save, who is going to come in, and this is where you will see just how much of a challenge we are up against. 50 overness is where I'm going to start here. Anybody over 50. BG James, he's a popular figure, 55 overness. He's decent. We know that he was very, very entertaining and charismatic, and again, he's pretty much a decent all-rounder. I think the only issue is soft drug users, former hard drug user, drinker. I think that is what got him sacked from WWE, so I'm not sure about bringing him in straight away so soon after his WWE release, but he's going to be somebody on the shortlist because basically it's sort of a case of beggars can't be choosers. If we want somebody who's 55 overness and not signed by the WWF, it's likely that they're going to have some kind of issue, so BG James can go on the shortlist. Kurt Hennig, I think, will be a similar person in terms of, yes, he's a drinker, hard drug user, painkillers, soft drugs and steroids, so a lot of things. Obviously, we know how it ended with Kurt Hennig. I will put him on the shortlist because, again, he's popular, he's talented, but yeah, it's really difficult because 6'3", just, yeah, he's an all-rounder who you'd want on any roster, if not for the fact that he has those issues. We've got some celebrities on here, and I don't really think we're going to be signing any of them, so I'm going to go no to celebrity just because I think I don't want celebrities showing up as the people we can potentially sign. Dustin Rhodes is somebody who I am interested in. Again, he did have those issues, I believe, around this time. So it's always going to be a risk, pretty much anybody we're bringing in, but he's not actually available until August 2001, so a bit of time to think with that. And Dusty Rhodes, again, I think he will be somebody who will come in at some point because he's got 60 overness. He's absolutely fantastic on the microphone, and he still can be used in ring. Eric Bischoff is actually available, which is quite surprising, but the one thing we don't want to do is to tell people basically that this WCW is the same as the old one, so Eric Bischoff will not be coming into the new WCW, at least not yet, so maybe I'll put him on the shortlist just so we can keep track of anything that happens in his career. Goldberg, of course, we will be interested in him when he's available, but it's still another year and a bit until he is. Hulk Hogan, I don't think we will be ever bringing back into this company. Jeff Jarrett, again, can't see it. I know that I think Shane McMahon doesn't like him. It's not set up in the game, it's just set up as a hatred of Vince McMahon, but there is stories out there that Shane kind of flew off the handle at him when he left the WWF. Now, we have come to the first person that I'll just be straight up signing, and that is because I want our colour commentator for the new WCW to be Jerry Lawler. Recently left the WWF in controversy, and their loss is our gain. He doesn't want to be wrestling anything other than major. I'm not really signing him as a wrestler, although I do have plans for him to have matches every now and again. So he wants a little bit more money from us. I think we'll go 2,500 and see if that works for him. Yeah, so Jerry Lawler on 2,500 a show is definitely good. Ken Shamrock, another person I'm definitely interested in, so he can make the shortlist. Kevin Nash, hopefully he goes to WWF because not somebody who I'm interested in. Luger's probably never going to be back. Likewise for Randy Savage, Ric Flair, Mr. WCW, along with somebody who's further down this list, but somebody who I have got interest in, and eventually when he's available, we will definitely be making a play for him. But I do have a feeling that we will be facing competition from the WWE. Rick Steiner, not a chance I'll be making a move for him. The way he wrestled in 2001, he was just a complete dick, it seemed. Yeah, not a fan of Rick Steiner whatsoever. He had a look and he could go in the ring, but just came across as an absolute arsehole, to be fair, and not somebody who I want in this locker room. Rowdy Roddy Piper, I don't have an idea for him, but then he is 60 overness. He's fantastic on the mic. Somebody worth considering. I did also watch XWF and WWA from this time because they kind of utilised a lot of the talent that weren't picked up by the WWE, and I wanted to see if there was anybody who stood out. Roddy Piper was on one of those company shows, I think it was the XWF, and he was just completely unhinged. The XWF was a weird company. Scott Hall, under a written contract with New Japan, he has those issues, but at the same time, he has one history with WCW as a top guy, and he's 75 overness. So again, I would be interested in what people think about bringing in Scott Hall. Scott Steiner is somebody as being built as the very top guy in the company towards the end, who we will put on the shortlist. Shane Douglas, I'll put him on the shortlist just to keep track of what he's doing. When he's available, we'll then have a decision to make, but it's almost a year before we can use him. Sid Vicious is out injured for probably a couple of years. I think it'll be, if we're going off what he was doing in reality, 2004, so over 3 years he'll be out injured. A very, very serious leg break, of course, on basically one of the first WCW shows I watched in 2001, and I did question whether I should continue after that because it was an absolutely awful moment. But Sting, obviously making the shortlist, one of the most popular guys. I'm not even sure if he would sign for us at our current size, but hopefully by the time he is available, we are a viable option for him. I don't want to see him going to the WWE. Ted DiBiase, nope. Tony Schiavone, I think at this time he mentally checked out. Maybe we'll bring him back in a couple of years, but for now, I'm not really interested in having Tony Schiavone as our announcer. Vader, 45 years old. I didn't realise he was quite this old, to be fair. He's somebody who's popular. He's a former WCW World Heavyweight Champion. I think he's even held the belt 3 times, was it? Yeah, he held that 3 times and the IWGP Heavyweight 3 times. So he is somebody who, on this list of over people, I mean, he's got fat genes apparently, and he's got a bad back and bad knees, but he's not got any other issues. There's a lot of positives to Vader. I know he'd been booked quite badly in the WWF just a couple of years earlier, so that kind of takes the shine off him. But is he somebody we can build up as a, probably never going to be a world champion again, but as one of the top heels and somebody who you kind of see as, if somebody can beat him, then they are ready to go to the main event? We are short on over heels. Definitely someone to consider, somebody I'd be interested in people's thoughts on. We'll go to 40 to 50 in terms of overness in the United States. I'll just quickly go through this list. Chronic definitely on the short list, but not available until September. Davey Boy Smith, I think probably more trouble than he's worth at this time in his career. I'll shortlist him. Ernest the Cat Miller, he was a big part of WCW in 2001. Unfortunately not available for over a year. So yeah, it might not even be worth shortlisting, but if we do get to that point, somebody we can figure out whether I think there's a spot for him. Glenn Gilbertti, one thing I will give to him, he wasn't worried about putting people over in 2001. I know he was on the booking team and he was just losing to anybody and everybody, so some credit there. Not often that Disco Inferno gets much credit, but that was one thing that was fair enough, I think, at this time. I am just going to sort of quickly scroll through. Jimmy Hart, I am quite interested in. This is with Vader in mind, to be fair. I'm wondering if Vader and Jimmy Hart could be somebody who we're bringing together, and he does have 70 booking skill. I knew that he'd been working on the booking team towards the end of WCW with Johnny Ace, and I can't remember who else it was, but he was one of the main people. So, again, someone to consider. Not going to be a first sort of signing. Nobody I'm in a rush to bring in. I don't think we're going to face much competition from elsewhere, but somebody to consider. Juventud Guerrera, I just think, again, too troublesome, not worth it. There's a lot of guys who can do similar to what he can do in the ring without having such a bad reputation. Konnan, I will put on the shortlist, but I really didn't like what I saw from him in 2001, to be fair. He's somebody who I've always liked, and I think he's obviously a brilliant promo. He is over as well. He's going to slot into sort of the mid-card for us. He's over in Mexico as well, so if we do have a TV show there or go do shows there, does he have any particularly bad attributes? Obviously he's a control freak, so I think that's more of it. He's not got any personal issues, whatever that is. Soft drug user, which I'm not really too bothered about, but I don't know. Conan's under consideration, but again, not a desperate signing. Nelson Knight, I think, is just he's got an interesting look, so we'll stick him on the shortlist. We'll do the same with Rena. Rey Mysterio, when he's available, 100% interested in him. We've finally got to an active wrestler who will be signing, and we will be offering a 3-year written exclusive deal to Rob Van Dam, and simple as that. No negotiations required, and hopefully WWF aren't going to come in and nick him from under our nose. Sabu, Cambodian, that's something that probably needs changing. I'll make a note of that and change that in the editor when I get the chance. He's on the shortlist, current XWF World Heavyweight Champion. Again, a bit of a loose cannon, and I kind of want to have a peaceful backstage environment where possible. Whether Sabu suits that, I'm not too sure, but yeah, he's somebody who's going to go on the shortlist. Stevie Ray, again, if we get a B show, I think he'd be my choice for colour commentator. He did a good job on the shows that I saw him on in 2001. He wasn't bad at all. Of course, he never decided to go to the WWF, but if he had, I think he could have probably had a decent career as a commentator on one of the B shows. Terry Funk, I will put on the shortlist. I've got an idea for him, but not just yet. Two other guys that I will be bringing in, and we've been speaking about people with potentially problematic habits. It's probably fair to say that Sandman is under that category, but one, I've got a really good idea for him, and I think he's somebody who didn't really get much of a shot in his first run in WCW, so he's going to feel like a bit of a fresh character. I don't actually want to offer him, but he is from the Tri-State, so we probably would have asked for it anyway. We're only going to do a 6-month deal with him and give him a per show deal, and if he's behaving himself in 6 months, then I'll be happy to extend him. We'll also be bringing in Tommy Dreamer, but I will be going for the exclusive written contract for him, and we will offer him a per month deal. Although I'm just going to do a year. Van Dam I see being a big part of the company for 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years. Dreamer, I've got an idea for him, but we'll see where we are this time next year. That's if he is willing to accept that deal and nobody else comes in for him. Tony Schiavone and Vampiro. I will stick Vampiro on the shortlist actually because he's not that old and he's probably got pretty good skills. Oh, he'll be back from his broken neck in not too long. But I just think for now, again, we'll maybe let him work off that ring rust elsewhere before we potentially bring him in, if we do at all. In terms now of 30 to 40 overness, Too Cold Scorpio is actually the tag team partner of Vader. I'll stick him on the shortlist. Alex Wright, not available until next year, but I'll stick him on it because I do think there was potential with him that was never quite reached. How long is it? A month or so before Big Vito can come in, but again, somebody who I think he's okay. Like there's some talent to him and size and a little bit of history, so he could be a member of our mid card. Chris Candido, I'm not too sure about. I know he'd had a run in WCW and got sacked, so again, shortlist him, no harm in that. Devon Storm, I do actually want to bring in. He was Crowbar in WCW at the time, and we'll go for a year again with Devon Storm. He's happy with that, so hopefully he will sign that contract. Johnny B. Bad is somebody who was just training for a return at this time, and he did actually appear, I think, in WWA or XWF, or maybe both. Married to Sable, so maybe if we bring her in, we can bring Johnny B. Bad in for the ride as well. Who knows? And speaking of the booking team before, I think Kevin Sullivan was that guy as well. LA Park is somebody who can also go on the shortlist, somebody with an interesting look and history in WCW. Our other commentator is going to be Mike Tenay, and we will offer him a 1-year contract just like we did to Jerry the King Lawler, $500 per show. I'm glad these guys aren't pushing much of a hard bargain. New Jack, interesting but problematic, and I think from what I've said about other people, probably not somebody who's wise to bring in. Maybe in a year or two when we have a nice solid settled roster, some of these people it'll be more acceptable to bring onto the roster, as they will be sort of one bad apple in overall hopefully a good bunch. Steve Corino, the current NWA World Heavyweight Champion, he got history with Dusty Rhodes, and I think he was signed to a contract or being considered for a I think I'm going to sign Steve Corino. What I'll do, I'm going to go 6 months and not exclusive, so we can still work with the NWA, but he'll be part of our roster, and basically we'll see if he's somebody we want to keep after the 6 months. But I think because WCW had signed him, I think in real life, and the fact that he's somebody who's not been in the company before, I think we will actually give him the shot. That is everybody over 30 overness, and what I think I'll do now, I'll have a look on 20 and 30, but what I'm imagining is that it's going to be a lot of people who aren't very popular. So what I'm going to do is go through these names and add anybody to the shortlist. Blue Meanie, why not? He can be an interesting, entertaining undercard act. C.W. Anderson can go on the shortlist, and the third member of our commentary team, who I am actually going to offer a exclusive written deal, and we'll actually go 2 years for him rather than the 1 year, because I think long term he has a lot of potential to be not only a commentator but also a manager in the company. So we'll give Cyrus a 2-year contract, and I think that is everybody we'll be looking to bring in. Dawn Marie can go on the shortlist. Devon Storm we've already offered a contract to. Francine I will also be bringing in, because again, an idea that I have for an act, will offer her an exclusive written 1-year deal. She'll be losing opportunities elsewhere, so we will offer her, no, that's too much, $200 per show. Francine really selling herself short there. She's going to be under a written contract where she can only make $200 a show, but it is what it is, I suppose. Jazz, again, I'll put on the shortlist, as I will do with James Mitchell. Joey Styles, again, he'll be in consideration if we do ever get B shows or other shows. Johnny Swinger as well. Kid Cash. There's a lot of talent, to be fair, available. It's just that they're not all necessarily over, or I don't know, I don't want to go too heavy and just bringing in every single ECW alumni that we can think of. But as I go through this list now, you will see that is pretty much what I'm doing. And hopefully if we get a B show, or if we expand our roster, we will be able to bring in a lot of these guys. But I think for now, I mean, I'm literally just shortlisting every ECW guy that I can see at the minute. But I am going to go for a written exclusive deal. We'll offer 1 year to Super Crazy. He doesn't want to come as in fact, we'll offer him a per month deal, and hopefully that'll be enough to make his mind up. Tatanka, Terry Taylor, I'm wondering about maybe being on the booking team. I think he was with the company until the very end. He's got 70 booking. I'd imagine he's a decent road agent as well. Decent, yeah, but not fantastic. I will actually look. I think he was with WCW until the very, very end. Well, perhaps not according to this. We've not seen for a while, but yeah. So nobody I'm in a rush to bring in, that's for certain. He's not going to be the big surprise on the Big Bang pay-per-view. We'll put Tony Mamaluke on there, though I don't really see much of a fit for him. And I'm also going to sign to an exclusive written contract. We'll do 1 year for him as well. I don't really want to cover people's travel if possible yet. So a written deal, Yoshihiro Tajiri. So these are the people who we are looking to bring in for the first show. Very much an ECW theme, it has to be said, but this is the time when the best guys who were free agents are those ECW guys. What I'm going to do now is just go through the 10s to 20s off screen, and then I will show the full shortlist just before we finish the video. And what I'm going to say, just as a rule, if you've not got 10 overness in the USA, you're not going to make the shortlist. So if there's anybody who I would be interested in who's not on this list of 10 to 20, then it just is what it is. If I see them maybe performing well in another company, that's another matter, and I can add them to my shortlist through that. But just by the worker search, I'm going to exclude people with under 10 popularity, and I'm thinking that that'll mean that the likes of CM Punk can't just be signed willy-nilly, American Dragon, and yeah, I just kind of like the idea of waiting for people to come onto our radar rather than being this omniscient, all-knowing person. But I'll be back in a second with the completed shortlist, and then we will wrap up this video and look towards the big bang. So there is our completed shortlist, at least for the time being. Feel free to have a look through that and let me know if there's any obvious omissions or people who maybe I haven't considered who you think would be good for this new WCW. That is the state of the company. That is the people who we're trying to bring in. Let me know if you agree or disagree also, because again, is it a case of bringing in just too many ECW stars that it's going to seem like we're doing an invasion? That's not the idea, but I don't know. I can certainly see both sides of it. We're building our own WCW, and hopefully, albeit with, I'd say, a limited additions. I think we could have gone all out, brought in Konnan, Kurt Hennig, BG James, and there's still time for me to do that. I'm torn. I'm a little bit unsure, because partially you want to strengthen the roster because it massively needs it. Only 31 active wrestlers, but on the other hand, is bringing in problematic people who are going to make those around them worse, and people who are just going to long term hurt your show more than they're going to help. Is it a case of just dealing with the fact that it's going to maybe be a slow start, that a lot of the shows, I will admit, a lot of the angles, a lot of the segment ratings aren't going to be very good. We've got some poor wrestlers who aren't that over. We've got some good wrestlers who are really not over. We've got lots of different challenges to face, and I think that's what makes this, to me, a very, very interesting save going forward. So we are only at day 2 here, but I've come back to record because there is major news on the TEW.com home screen, and that is that WWE have offered an extension to Pete Gas. Now, obviously, in any other save, I would not have a single interest in bringing him in. However, some people will know Shane McMahon is childhood friends with this man, and I think just to kind of throw the cat amongst the pigeons, to make things not, in a sense, even harder on myself, we're going to offer a contract to Pete Gas to come into the company. I kind of think it's stupid as I'm doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway, because why not bring in one of Shane's childhood best friends? He has a better offer from somewhere else, so maybe, what if we offer him 3-year deal? So he's considering that. I'll let you know how things go with that and all other negotiations. We do actually have a rival bid for Super Crazy. Their offer is being seriously considered over ours, so I will update the terms of this. I don't see why that's being seriously considered over ours. Should I maybe offer him 2 years and that'll keep him happy? How does he have a better offer from somebody else? They're going to book him once a month on an exclusive handshake deal, rather than, what if we go $7,000 a month? I think you're making a bad decision here, Super Crazy. I will have to say that. But I have how is that better? Is it the merchandise cut? No, he's getting the merchandise cut. I cannot see what is possibly better about that deal than our deal. Unless are they a touring company and he's going to get booked a lot or something? They've got 2 shows a week, whereas we've got none. Yeah, he's probably right. What if we tell him he can stay for 3 years? It looks like we should be getting Super Crazy. So another bit of news that we've had is that the Super Crazy bid has ended. We failed. It didn't even give me a chance to go back for him, but I've just tried to offer him an exclusive deal again. We'll see what happens with that. Might be a case that Super Crazy is not coming into the company. The WWF have acted quickly though, and they've gone in for Scott Hall. It looks like Diamond Dallas Page would like us to try and match that offer, but I'm not paying $80,000 for 2 years for Scott Hall. We could do that deal, and then when we want to get rid of him, drug test him and fire him. But I'm just going to say he went to WWF in real life, albeit a little bit later, and that is something that I don't really think I want to get involved in. However, this is one that we need to get involved in. This is the bidding war, the first bidding war since Shane McMahon took over, and we're gonna go right in there with $7,500, and hopefully that is enough to convince Pete Gas to make the jump. A huge shot across the bow towards WWF, letting them know that even their top potential future stars are not safe from WCW anymore. Ruthless businessman Shane McMahon, and that's just reminded me I did want to bring in, albeit only for a one-shot deal, Bob Sapp, and you'll see on the pay-per-view why that will be the case. He seems happy enough to work for $30, so, well, I'm not going to complain about that. But again, I'm going to go through now, and if there's any news to hit you with, I'll be back once again. And just to prove, as if it needed proving, WCW is where the big boys play. Gas signs an exclusive written 3-year deal. What am I thinking? I'm going to complete this signing even though everything in my head is telling me it's a very stupid idea. Shane wants his boy around, that's fine, but he will have to work his 28-day notice. I'm not helping myself here, am I? Oh well, we carry on. So I also think that this is an important thing to point out. Stone Cold Steve Austin has invented a new entirely improvised catchphrase. Now, I was hoping that if there was one thing we could do in this alternative timeline, it was avoid the what chant ever existing. Unfortunately, even earlier in the timeline, Stone Cold Steve Austin appears to have invented the what chant. So, yeah, bad news for the next 25 years of wrestling. Scott Hall has officially signed that WWF contract now, and I think that may well be for the best. And it looks like Shane leaving the company has started to take its toll on the WWF, as Vince and his daughter are at each other's throats with how the company should be booked going forward. So even from the outside, the cracks are starting to show. WWF, it's only a matter of time before WCW is the #1 promotion. So we have had a spanner thrown into the works of one of my potential plans here, as Terry Funk has suffered a broken neck while wrestling last night, something that could have been avoided if I had actually hired him, but unfortunately at EWP Wrestling Chaos Night 2, well, we may have even seen the end of the career of Terry Funk, albeit knowing Terry Funk, it's probably not going to be the case, and that just so happened to be his last night at the company, so unfortunate news for Terry Funk there. And here we are, we have made it to show day without any further incident. Sunday the 27th of May 2001, WCW The Big Bang scheduled. I'm going to advance to the pay-per-view now and get that first show booked, and hopefully it won't be too long before you see that. Thank you for watching this episode. I'm sure it's been a long one, but hopefully worthwhile in setting the scene for what I think is going to be a fantastic save going forward. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.